So I guess first, just to start, last time I talked to you was obviously before the primary. Yeah. Now we're getting towards the general election. How have you been feeling? Have you been busy? What have you been doing?
Oh, nonstop action since August. A lot of just reconnecting with voters, so doorbelling, events, talking to people, endorsement interviews. I think a lot of people were waiting with 6 people in the race to kind of see what shook out, and so it's been really busy since August.
Yeah. And then tell me, going into this, if you were to become mayor, what would be your top 3 priorities, the things you want to focus in on?
Yeah, no, I think really I'm a real back to the basics kind of person. So first and foremost is public safety. I hear from a lot of people that don't feel safe and want to feel safer, so that'd be top priority. Number 2 is roads, streets, infrastructure, sidewalks, making it easier for people to get around our city safely and easily. And then the last one, I really want to talk about jobs. How to bring more jobs to the community, and jobs that, not only just kind of pay your rent, but pay for the things you want in life.
Mm-hmm. And talk to me about what you think are some of the challenges that are facing Tacoma right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is just continues to be some of just the perceptions of safety that people have, right? I hear from a lot of residents who don't feel safe, who are concerned about safety, and that's broader than just crime, but it's also, I don't feel safe, driving on some of our roads. I don't feel safe walking to where I need to go. And so I think the biggest thing the mayor's really going to need to lean into is working with the police chief, working with city staff about how do we really address perceptions of safety here in Tacoma, make people feel safer.
And talking about roads and infrastructure, I know that, I believe it was last year now, the Tacoma Streets Initiative didn't pass. Yeah. Is that something, do you think, that will need to be readdressed, figuring out how to get funding for roads to help make them safer or fix them? Yeah,
the next mayor, that will be one of the things they're going to have to figure out is how are we going to maintain the roads and streets that we have. And so I think we'll have to have a real strong, a big, important conversation about what a Streets Initiative 2 package looks like, whether it's more likely not going to have to come back to the ballot, which will require us really doing a lot of community outreach and work ahead of time to get, I think, just more pre-buy-in into what's happening, getting more people on board before we even decide to go to the ballot that this is what we need to do.
And then, I know that I know this personally, but can you talk more about kind of your past, how long you've been on council, what you did before that?
Great. I've been on the council for 5 years. I got elected in 2019, so I've been there since 2020. Before that, I was a high school teacher and football coach in the area. And so education, civics is my passion. It's something I really like to bring to the council about how we can educate the public on what the city does and engage more people in the process. Yeah.
And then talk to me about, you grew up in Tacoma. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm a lifer. Actually, we're in South Park right now, and I was joking with you before. I was at the South End Boys and Girls Club as a kid, and we used to run through the cemetery behind us to play in South Park. So I grew up here. My mom worked on South Tacoma Way. And this is a really cool area where we're seeing some vibrancy, some new investments, some businesses opening up, along with some really long-time businesses that are starting to find some success. So as mayor, something I'm really passionate about is how do we make sure every neighborhood in the city finds success. Growing up in South Tacoma, there wasn't as much here when I was a kid, but I'm excited about what I'm seeing now, and I'd like to see more, not only here, but in every part of our city.
Yeah. And then we were going through some crime data recently, and Tacoma, it showed, had the highest rate of violent crime of a city in the state, aside from Reston, actually, if you're going off population and violent crime. When you hear that, what's your first, concerns or thoughts that come to mind?
Yeah, no, I think first and foremost, it's the most important thing the city has to do is make sure people are safe. And so it makes me really think about how are we doing the most important job we have here. Tacoma has its challenges in lots of ways. We're kind of a working class, blue collar city. We also have the military base right here that's close by that, have made us historically more of a place where you see more criminal activity, more crime, that it's always been a real thing we've had to lean into as much as the city, since I've been here in the city and on the council, and just means it's something we're going to have to do a lot more. And the next mayor and the council is going to have to really think about how do we continue to try to chip away at some of the violent crime. And it's both make sure we have a fully staffed police department, which I'm going to the swearing in of 10 officers that lateral hired into our city here in a little bit. It's also how are we investing in the community with our schools, with our community groups, with our kind of nonprofits to make sure people have resources they need so that we're keeping fewer people from getting involved in criminal activity in the first place.
I would say, so it's kind of a mix of prevention with working with the community and youth, and then also enforcement with having a fully staffed police department?
Yeah, I think being the teacher that I am, I think that's really how I think about both sides. How do we prepare, give people the resources they need to be successful and make the right choices? And then how do we make sure we're kind of keeping the rules very clear about what we expect as a community and what we don't want to see? And so that's, I think, how I would focus on it going forward.
And then even when we compared the crime rate in Tacoma, the violent crime rate, to other cities in the U.S., it also ranked pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, what else, like you said, can be done to fix that where, we're not on the top of the list in the future?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a real focus on addressing crime and the root causes of crime here in the community. And both fully staffing our police department, but also just, those investments in the community to really get to it. And I think the more we can try to do both of those and really have a focus on that, I think we're going to be really successful. I think we also just have to be really honest that it's a challenge for us. I don't think we can paper over the fact that our crime rate is unacceptable and too high for a city of our size or a city anywhere. Our neighbors are really frustrated with it, and I'm frustrated too. And I think first thing is that is something we have to lean in on. First things and foremost, that's the thing we really have to kind of address and take it with a sense of urgency and not be afraid to talk about it, to say, hey, this is a real challenge we're facing, and bring people in. I think there's a lot of folks in this community who want to help with that. And, hopefully as next mayor, I'll be able to bring those people together to really kind of, turn the dials on it.
Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to teen crime, I know in the spring we lost a few teens to gun violence. It's something we reported on a lot. And I know that the city, Summer Late Nights was brought back a few years ago. I think it's the BRAVE program.
Yeah.
I guess what do you think's been working that the city's been doing, and then what else do you think we could do?
Yeah. No, I think what we've really done well is how do we take, a population that's been involved in a lot of these shootings, young men or young people in our community, and give them something positive to do with their time. So Teen Summer Late Nights and the BRAVE program has been really good at giving those young people a positive place to be and really keep them from doing other things, right? It's a positive time. What we're missing, and I would really like to see, is how do we extend that further? So I'd really like to see more mentorship in the community and a broader focus on how we connect young people and not just fill their time, but fill their lives. How do we make sure they can get access to jobs and workforce training and ways to earn and be part of the community, even to be civically involved in the community, like to volunteer. I think we need to take it from just like, how do we fill time to how do we actually fill people's lives? And I think that's how we get kind of long-term improvements on some of this. Because it's one thing for a high school student to have a place to go after school. It's another to say that they have a job and a community group they're part of and positive relationships with adults that can then sustain for multiple years in the future.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing I hear people talk about a lot is affordable housing and housing options. You hear people say, I got priced out of Seattle, moved to Tacoma, and now we're getting priced out of Tacoma, moving, out into the county or something. What do you think can be done to help people have, affordable, safe housing in Tacoma?
Yeah, I think you said it, two parts of it, affordable and safe, right? So one is that continuing to address the safety concerns that people have, but two, it's how do we have more affordable housing? And I think one of the challenges that you've identified is we've always been cheaper than some of the places in the region. And now as people have discovered that and they're moving here, it's putting pressure on our longtime residents. So I think the biggest thing is we got to build more housing, got to have more housing options, because there's no way to stop people from moving here. It's actually a good thing. We want to be a city people want to live in. So we have to build more and more, all types of housing. So, as people come in, they can move into that housing. As our residents need to change housing types because their lives change, they have places to go. I think we also need to continue to invest in affordable housing in our community. So for people who are really struggling kind of to pay what market rate rent, do we have more options for them to move into? But beyond that, the critical thing is we need to increase the earning power of our residents, right? We need to have them get better jobs and move forward into higher paid work so they can afford the housing that's here. Because we're not moving to the point where we're more expensive than Seattle. We're not moving to a point that we're more expensive than the region is just more expensive. And so if we're not building the capacity of our residents to earn more, like through good jobs, they're going to always be chasing affordable housing. And that's what I don't want to see.
And obviously in Tacoma, there's the mayor and then there's the city manager. Whoever becomes mayor will have a role in selecting, right, the city manager, and
Yeah.
I think even the police chief.
Yes, we have an interim city manager and an interim police chief right now.
Yeah.
So the next mayor will be a critical piece in like hiring who that person is going to be. It's an important role. I mean, we're one of the larger cities in the country that have a city manager form of government, and so we need someone who can really take on that role. I'm really looking for someone who's going to be creative and dynamic and have kind of new and interesting ideas of how to kind of address some of the challenges we have in the city of Tacoma. I want someone who's really action oriented, because I think we've been talking about a lot of changes here in the city for a long time. I think we're talked out.
Yeah.
I think we've done our talking and we've done our conversations, and what I hear from the public more than anything is they want to see action. They want to see stuff get done. They want to see actual improvements in the issues they've brought up, and I think we owe it to them.
And then my last question, what would be your main message to voters who, either voted for you in the last election or maybe they didn't, and maybe the person they voted for isn't in the race anymore? Who knows? What's your message to those people about why you think they should vote for you?
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing I come back to again and again is right now, with kind of a lot of the uncertainty that's happening in the world and the country, we need a steady hand, competent leader who can kind of really lead the city forward. And I have an experience and shown through my time on the council to lead on the biggest issues, right? I've been a leader on homelessness, on housing, on public safety, on transportation, on litter, trash, graffiti, right? So all these issues I've been a leader on, and my colleagues have looked at me to do those things. And I think, like I said earlier, the time for talk is kind of over. We need to kind of move forward and really get some things done, and I think I'm the one who's most primed to be able to do that. And as I've told a lot of folks, like, one thing about me is I'm very honest with folks. I tell them exactly where I stand, and I think what we also need in someone right now as the mayor is someone who's going to just tell people how it is. Here's where we are, here's where we can go, here's where we can't go, but we're going to do our best to get to where we can go. And I think I'm the person that's primed to do that.
And one more thing that you just brought up, homelessness. That's another big topic in the city.
Yeah.
How do you think we can better address that, or what could we continue to do, or new things we could do?
Well, there's a good article in the News Tribune today about the tiny home village right by my house on 6th and Orchard. I think that's a really good model of, a shelter type that is really working well for families and children, and it's been really easily integrated into our neighborhood and shown some real success. I think we need to continue to look at kind of the shelter and housing types we have to kind of make sure people are getting the resources they need, increasing the amount of kind of behavioral health, so mental health and substance use disorder treatments we have in the community, so people get access to the treatment they need, because they need more than just a place to live. A lot of folks need additional support and resources. And I think the more we can try to get those to folks, the better we can be. I really think, though, the biggest innovation I'm going to push really hard is I think we need to get tighter on individuals and what they need to kind of move forward. I think too often we get bogged down in these kind of big, broad statements about homeless people or homelessness, and it's all this one thing or it's all this other thing. But at the end of the day, they're individuals, and they have different needs, and they have different challenges. And I think for us as a city to really kind of see a real improvement, we have to get a better idea of who the people are and then getting them what they need. I think that's the biggest thing that the next mayor is going to have to really push our staff on, is we want to be more clear about who is here and how we get them the resources they need. And then, clearly another piece is just kind of balancing the, public space, and people experiencing homelessness at the same time, right? I think I hear from a lot of our community that are frustrated with kind of the persistence of some encampments, persistence of people kind of in public spaces, and I think we've struck a good balance on the council in the city of Tacoma so far, and that's just going to be the next mayor's job, is to continue to think about how we balance those two things.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure to touch on, or just want to add?
No, let me think through that one. That's a good question. No, I think the biggest thing I've been really trying to talk to people about, Connor, is just the idea that when you run for office, you can make a lot of promises about what you're going to do. But at the end of the day, history is the best example of what someone's going to do going forward. And so I think I have a pretty clear history of leading on things, accomplishing things that have been identified as my initiatives or my work that I've been able to kind of pull through with the current council members. And I think that is the biggest thing I like to highlight when I talk to folks. I think other people who run can talk a lot about the things they hope to do and they want to do and they may have been part of, but were they the leader on it? Were they the one pushing it? Maybe not as much. And to be the mayor, you need someone who can actually lead and push things through.